preview. Obviously, we previewed all the major conferences. We did not do Notre Dame as obviously they're independent. We're saving it for week 0 here. They really deserve their own show, but we're going to give them this a segment of this show, today. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about Notre Dame. So obviously the biggest news in the offseason is the arrival of Wake Forest transfer Sam Hartman at quarterback, which, being a Notre Dame fan, just I was a little kid, the one thing we always tend to be missing is that dynamic quarterback. We haven't had it really, to my opinion, since Brady Quinn, who can actually go out and win a game for you. Not most of the quarterbacks we've had since have been ones that just don't lose it. Like I feel like Ian Book did a great job of winning some games, but it was mostly on the defense and running game and offensive line that we won games. But here, I really feel like he can go out and win a couple games, a couple shootouts, and that's something Notre Dame hasn't had in the past. And what I really like about this is that he'll be surrounded by one of the nation's best offensive line. The offensive line he had at Wake Forest was never that great, and so he's kind of always running for his life, throwing things up, and he had to be the man. So if you look at his like passing touchdowns, interceptions, he had a lot of interceptions that people bring up a lot, but I feel like that was because he was the offense at Wake Forest. He had to try to make a lot of plays happen, and so he was in that gunslinger mode where he had to throw it. My hope here is good offensive line, good running backs. He won't have to do that. Where they might have some trouble is receivers. Now, they've been rebuilding that receiver core since last year. They came in, I think, like 6 scholarship receivers last year. Now they got that up. They brought in 4 true freshmen. That the receivers a challenge. Those younger receivers from last year are now older. Some receivers I think could take a step this year. Tobias Merriweather. Jaden Thomas, who came on his own last year, was I think could be really good. And then you have some other ones like Jaden Grayhouse from Austin, Texas, who's a true freshman who could play. We saw in the spring game, I think 11 catches in that spring game. So the offense, I expect them to be much better last year. I feel like the reason Notre Dame lost last year is because they had no true quarterback with Drew Pine throwing after Tyler Buckner went down. So that's where I see them being better. They have a good offensive line, good running game, and I think obviously great passing attack. Defense, they lose 3 veterans up front, including the school record for sacks and Isaiah Foskey. I don't, there's a lot of concern out there about the line. I actually think this is going to be a strength of them last year. You're looking at the fall practices, they're 8 or 9 deep on the defensive line, and they can constantly bring people in. Jason Anye, Howard Cross, Riley Mills, Gabriel Rulio, Jonah Botello, all players that can make impact on that defensive line. And they also brought in Baptiste from Ohio State, which I think will get a couple good sacks, and be a good rotational player for them as well. So if all that being said, we could take a look at their schedule here. As always, it's going to be a challenging schedule. You start at Navy in Dublin. You have to go to North Carolina State. You play Ohio State. You play at Duke, at Louisville. You play USC, Pittsburgh, Clemson, Wake Forest, and Stanford. So with all those factors being in there, I'd like to start with you, Jess. Where are you forecasting the record for Notre Dame last year? Last year, they were 9-4 overall. Obviously, they don't play in a conference, so overall it was 9-4. They were 2-2 away, 4-2 at home, 3-0 neutral field. So with that being said, what are you thinking? Better or worse than last year?
I'm thinking better. I'm thinking they should go 11-1, 10-2. I applaud Notre Dame for not taking the Georgia, Michigan kind of road here where they're just scheduling cupcakes, every week to try and go undefeated. They've got some tough games on the schedule. I think that they will lose to USC, but I can definitely see them beating Ohio State and Clemson. Both have questions at quarterback. Is Klubnik the guy there at Clemson? What the heck is even going on for quarterback at Ohio State? I don't know if you guys have seen anything about them having made any official declarations yet.
They have it, but the young guy, Devin Brown, is where I'm reading is probably going to be the starter. They just haven't broke it to them yet. That I think they're trying to keep Kyle McCarthy, Kyle McCord, not McCarthy, I think of JJ McCartney. Kyle McCord, they're trying to keep him, I think, engaged and not transfer. So they're keeping it competition.
He the one that played with Harrison Jr. during high school?
Yeah, but it looks like it's going to be Devin Brown because he's more mobile, and it seems like that's just he could be more impactful to the offense. That's what they're thinking. Ohio State, I think.
Yeah, so I think that I'm saying 11-1. maybe 10-2 if like Klubnik really does actually pan out there for Clemson. But I'm saying at least 10-2, probably 11-1.
All right. Jordan, do you agree?
Oh, definitely not. I I definitely think Notre Dame has all the ability offensively and defensively to beat Caleb Williams and USC. It's at home. It's a hard environment. I mean, me and Tony went to the game last year for Clemson, and that the environment was rocking. And Notre Dame is not easy to play at home. And I don't know. I don't think USC is going to be able to handle it, especially if it rains. When it rains.
When it rains, it pours. So.
Yep. So I'm thinking undefeated. I definitely can see them, losing one of these games. It wouldn't surprise me if they lose to Ohio State, Clemson, or USC. But I think there's so many, upsides to their team this year, and I think with Sam Hartman, and I think that's the only thing that's held them back. If they had Sam Hartman last year, it'd be a different story. They would have beaten Ohio State. They would have beaten Marshall. They would have won all these games that were so close last year by 2 touchdowns. And I think they've gotten that quarterback, and they've gotten those, defensive stars. They've gotten offensive stars. Their offensive line is great. And I think that's the biggest thing that they were missing is quarterback. And they're going to reload on, most, offensive line, even tight end. I think I'm with, Tony is, it's the biggest question mark is, receiver, but I think they're going to be fine with receivers this year. And they're just going to be able to beat every team that they didn't beat last year or beat last year and beat them again.
All right. For me, I'm thinking 11-1. What I'm struggling with is if I were to predict a loss, I would probably do Clemson because it's at Clemson at night, and that's a ruckus crowd as well. And it's just a tough environment. Clemson, I think, is 18-1 at home over the last 19 games, and they just win there. It's hard to beat them there. So that would be the game I would call out. I'm maybe I shouldn't be confident in the Ohio State game, but I feel like right now, if Notre Dame is ever going to beat Ohio State, it's going to be this year with the quarterback questions and the offensive line questions that Ohio State have. I think Notre Dame could really take advantage of that. USC, if they had Sam Hartman in that game against USC last year, I feel like Notre Dame would have won that game. So transfer it over to Notre Dame. I feel like Notre Dame can win a shootout, but they have a better defense to slow down Caleb Williams, where I don't think USC will have that defense, especially later in the season where injury or two could to hurt the depth. They already have depth issues on defense, so with solid players. So if they get 1 or 2 injuries, which they just had one, I think yesterday with one of their starting defensive linemen is now out for the season, I think that eventually will, hurt them, and I think Notre Dame can win that. Now, if they were to win all 3 of those, I could see a game kind of slipping up on them. I think Duke, you may laugh at me, but I think Duke is going to be a pretty good team this year. Riley Leonard at quarterback is solid. He's going to be an NFL player. They have a really good defense, and it's right after Ohio State. So it's like, that look ahead, they just won. They're happy over Ohio State, and they can lose that game. I can see like that happening, or I can see it at least being close. Pittsburgh is also a tough team that always plays hard defense, always puts good defensive players in the NFL. So that's going to be tough. Phil Jacobic's going to be angry at Notre Dame still and want to try to beat them there. So I can see that'd be tough. But yeah, so it's going to be a tough schedule, but I feel they have the players to do it. You just got to hope there's no injuries along the way. But I think 11-1, 12-0 could happen. It depends how Clemson is at the end of the year. All right. So that takes us to now our preview for week 0, Notre Dame at Navy. So for the first time since 2007, Navy have a different head coach, Brian Newberry, who was the defensive coordinator for the last 4 seasons. He's promoted after Coach Ken was fired following the season and he lost to Army. The Navy offense, could look a little different as they brought in some different players. They want to be able to do more shorter throws, not just run the ball. So I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm thinking more screen passes and things like that is what they're going to have in their repertoire. This first game, it may look ugly. It may take them a few games to really get that offensive going. So it could, or it could be totally shocking to Notre Dame and just throw them off the wax. So you don't know exactly how that is going to come out. I will say, one of the areas last year, I think Notre Dame was up 35-10 against Navy last year. And then I went in the game like 35-32 because the Navy defense is with zero blitz, and this Drew Pine just lost himself and couldn't do anything. I don't think that will happen with Sam Hartman. So I think this is, it's a 20-point spread. I think it's, I'm thinking, 28 point. You can't score a lot in Navy because they slow the game down, right? So, but I'm thinking 28-point victory here, but Notre Dame. So what do you say, Jess?
Yeah, I think Notre Dame wins easily. I don't think it's going to be too much of a challenge. I think Navy will put up a decent fight, but again, I don't think Notre Dame will be too pressed in this game. I think we're all going to have relatively the same answer here. So, yeah, I don't think Navy's going to really challenge Notre Dame.
Jordan, you agree? I hope you do.
No, I think Navy's going to lose. I think Notre Dame doesn't have, has more coherency right now. It's going to be different at Navy with the new head coach. And I think for Notre Dame, with all the additions, Sam Hartman, and I think Marcus Freeman wants to start off his second year the best he can, just because, how down last year kind of was for Notre Dame. I think Marcus Freeman wants more out of his team, and I think it's going to be fun for the players to all be together and be in Dublin together. I think that's going to bring morale and everything. And if you did not hear, Sam Hartman has a deal with Beats, and he got all his teammates Beats for NIL.
Gold Beats, yeah, they're nice.
They're nice. So I think Sam Hartman's bringing a different culture to the team at quarterback than I think they've had in a while. So I think that's the biggest thing for Notre Dame right now is their culture is changing. It's full. I think it's almost to Marcus Freeman era, 100%. And I think with the bringing Sam Hartman in, I think it's just making it so much closer to it's Marcus Freeman's team. So Notre Dame's going into this game, winning. I think they're going to win 48-10, but probably not 10, but 48-10, maybe 56. I don't know, 50 something.
All right. Sounds good.